What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first.
My great uncle was out cheating with his mistress and whatever, and after they had got done doing what they were doing, they fell asleep. And that same night, a great lightning storm came over the city, and lightning struck the trailer home that they were sleeping in, and it burned both of them alive.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Omohomi aka Petite Diva, and in this video we are looking at coincidences that have happened, and people are still thinking about it. So this video, people are sharing some of the coincidences that have happened to them, and they still think about it. They are still wondering how it happened. So let's check it out, and then I'll come back to share my thoughts. Now, before we continue with this video, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are not yet subscribed and you like videos such as this, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button that says subscribe, and don't forget to click on the bell notification icon by the side so that you're notified anytime I upload videos. Now let's get into this video.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first. I think a lot about how the United States constantly cuts funding to rural schools, then coincidentally also pushes things like a very heavy religious and nationalist narrative in those areas, and at the same time has an incredibly strong military recruiting presence in those areas as well. What a weird coincidence. What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
So back in 2017, I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, and I was working at a gift shop at the Wisconsin Historical Museum during the summertime. And like any other kind of gift shop, there were like books there, and these ones are about the state of Wisconsin, obviously. And there were like keychains, cheese foam heads, the whole 9 yards. And on my last day of work in late August, I was just looking at all of the things that we had that I hadn't really seen before. So I was looking at books and just like perusing around the store. And there was one book there called Hanging by a Thread, and it was a book by a photographer. And this photographer had taken a kite and put a camera on it and was taking aerial shots all throughout the state of Wisconsin, and had some really great candid shots of different events and beautiful parts of nature, all this stuff. So I was flipping through the book, and I found a photo, and it looked really weirdly familiar. And it was a photo from 2005 at the Dane County Fair. I'm from Wisconsin, and Dane County Fair happens every year. And it was a photo on a ride, and it was me, my sister, and my mom. In this photo, I'm looking at the camera, but I can tell you, like, straight up, I have no recollection of ever doing this. This was in 2005, so I was probably like 10 years old.
Wow.
And I had never, ever seen this photo before. So just very crazy that on my last day of work, I looked at this random book that we had, and I happened to be in the book.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
Okay, I've got one. So it's the year 2009, and my mom calls me and says, when you're out and about today, stop by. I found a shoebox full of some trinkets from your childhood. Come take a look and keep what you want and throw out what you don't. So I stop by my mom's house. I briefly look at the box. Most of it's junk that I don't want. Couple little trinkets I throw in my purse and think I'll look through those later. Fast forward the same day, later that afternoon, I decide to go with my daughter to a local sports bar restaurant type place for a bite to eat. We have our meal. It's quite packed. I don't remember what day of the week it was, but it was very full. We have our meal. Everything is great. I'm getting ready to pay the bill. And as I'm rummaging around in my purse, something stabs my finger. So I pull my hand out of my bag in pain, and my little round Michael Jackson pin that I used to wear on my jacket in the 80s is literally stuck to my finger, and the pin is sticking out of my finger. And at that moment, as I'm pulling it out of my finger and dabbing at the blood with a napkin, I hear all this commotion in the bar area where all the TVs are, and I'm thinking something's happened with a game. And I look up, and it's all across the news. Michael Jackson has died.
Ha.
I'm never throwing that pin out.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first. I think a lot about how the
So I don't think about coincidences because I don't believe in coincidences. I've told my kids since they were little, there are no coincidences. Everything that is meant to happen is meant to happen for a reason. I also believe wholeheartedly in the fact that if you meet someone and you are uncomfortable with them for any reason, you better listen to whatever that voice is saying, because you'll be sorry if you don't. My mom drove a dump truck in like the 80s, 90s, well, basically until the day she died. But one of the things that my mom could do with this company is that she could go either sometimes after work at night, or she could go on a Saturday and she could go pick up trucks from the paint shop, right? Well, this one company only dealt with a specific manufacturer of semis. Like, they were super loyal to this brand of semis. They only bought this brand. They only had them serviced at this company. It's just who they were. So my mom would head up here. I don't know, maybe she'd end up doing it like 2 to 3 times a year. But every time my mom did it, she would come home to our house and she would complain about this guy in the paint department that she picked up these trucks from. She would talk about how creepy he was, how she didn't like him, how she couldn't stand dealing with him, and how every time she just left after she picked the truck up, she just felt icky. And like she was dreading the next time that she would have to interact with this gentleman, right? Years go by. She keeps going up to this paint shop, picking these trucks up, and every time she'd be like, oh God, I hate this guy. He's so creepy. I'll tell you what, he is killing people. I bet you he has killed people. And we're all just like, Mom, you're crazy. So, fast forward like a decade. And my mom, it's probably near like the end of her career driving truck. And I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Super important part of this story. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, right? Where we had for many decades an unknown gentleman known as the Green River Killer running around murdering people. Now, I will tell you, I did remember that when my mom talked about this gentleman, she always referred to him as Gary, because that was the name on his uniform, right? Turns out, about a hot decade later, my mom's watching the news after she got off work, and they've just arrested the Green River Killer. Gary Ridgway, the Gary from the paint shop where my mom picked up all those trucks from, where she said, I guarantee you that guy is murdering people.
Ha!
So always listen to your intuition.
Ha!
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
A few years ago, I was driving for Instacart, and I got a wild hair up my ass one day. I was like, you know what? The next order that I take, I'm going to buy them like a little bouquet of flowers, like an $8 bouquet of flowers from King Soopers. And just include it with their order, just to make their day, just to be a nice person, just, you know. And I waited and I never got any more orders that day. So I was like, okay, cool, we're done for today. Fast forward to the next day, log on, boom, instantly I get an order. It's for King Soopers. It's like 5 items. It's like 1 mile away. It's perfect. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take that one. So we go, I get all of the stuff in the order, and then I go to the floral department, and I know exactly what bouquet I'm going to get. I have it in my mind's eye. So I'm making a beeline straight to it. Well, as I'm going over to that bouquet, just out of the corner of my eye, these bouquets of irises that they had just put out, screaming at me. So I like went over there and I looked at them, and they were the same price as the bouquet that I was going to get. And I was like, I'm going to get irises. I like irises. Let's get irises. So get the order, go to the lady's house, drop her stuff off. I write a little note to add with the irises so she knows that she didn't get charged for the irises. Go on my merry way, finish the rest of my day. Don't really think about it after that. Well, the next day she leaves me a review. And in the comment section of the review, she was like, thank you so much for the lovely flowers. I lost my mom a year ago, and I've been thinking about her a lot recently, and her favorite flowers were irises.
Aww.
What's the chance, bro? What is the chance. I wasn't even gonna get irises. I wasn't even. What is the chance out of, in a city of me getting this specific lady's order and at the last minute deciding to get irises? And it just so happens to be a lady who's like grieving her mom, and her mom's favorite flowers were irises. What a coinkydink little coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence. Okay? Did the work of God there with those irises. Just kidding. Moral of the story, like, if you get an urge to do a nice thing for somebody, it might be their dead mom trying to give them some flowers. So, like, just do it. Just do it.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first.
My great uncle was out cheating with his mistress and whatever. And after they had got done doing what they were doing, they fell asleep. And that same night, a great lightning storm like came over the city, and lightning struck the trailer home that they were sleeping in, and it burned both of them alive.
I did not expect that.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first.
This is probably the craziest one you guys are going to hear. So when I was 12 years old, I was at a mall about an hour and a half from my hometown with my identical twin sister and one of our friends. By the way, we're adopted, me and my sister. We were adopted at the age of 3 months, and it was a closed adoption, so we didn't have any information on our birth parents. So we're at this mall, it was after a soccer game, and we decided to go to a photo booth. So we go with our friend, we take some photos in the photo booth, and then we go to get our pictures. And when we go to get the pictures, there's someone else's photos there, so someone who forgot theirs. So we don't recognize them. It's two blonde ladies in probably like their mid-20s. We look around and we see that they're not too far, so we go up to them and we give them their photos back. We don't recognize them, just kind of a quick, like, here you go, thank you, bye. So afterwards, we're walking throughout the mall and we see my mom, and she's talking to these same two women. And we're confused because we're like, how would she know these women? We've never seen them before. So as we're approaching her, we're kind of confused because it's the same women from the photo booth pictures. And then when we get closer, sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm pregnant. As we get closer, then my mom says, girls, I have something to tell you. And she says, this is your birth mother and her sister. So it ended up being our birth mom and her sister, and they're the two people who were there when my birth mother had us. There were two people in the room, and we were both named after them. So on our original birth certificate, we actually had their names. How crazy is that?
Wow.
And I probably have at least 5 stories that are as coincidental as that one, but that one is the craziest one.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
In October of 1993, my mom passed away, and it was very tragic and sudden, and I was 4.5 months pregnant. And it wasn't until February that I was rushed to the hospital, and there was an EMT who knew how sick I was. I got a life-threatening illness, and I had a 10% chance to survive.
What?
Now, I was going to college in a very small community, and so they had to travel about 2 hours away to get me to a hospital that specialized in high-risk pregnancies. Now, on the drive to the hospital, I didn't know how sick I was, but I was at risk for having a seizure.
Ooh.
So they did not turn on the lights on the ambulance.
Ow.
And I remember the EMT, he wanted to pray with me. And he asked me, he said, do you want to pray? And I said, of course I do, I want to pray. And we prayed together. And it was really amazing because we also sang, and he just really kept my spirits high. So I did not forget about him, and I thought about him quite frequently. And so years later, I mean, in around 2010, I was working as a chaplain at a hospital, and a man asked me to come and pray with him. And so I went in to pray with him, and lo and behold, it was that EMT. And he told me, he said, you know, I always wondered what happened to you. And I said, well, I'm very much alive, and my daughter is grown, and he says, you know, I wondered if you had made it, because a lot of women do not make it, and I knew how sick you were. And he says, and now I'm sick. He said, and I just think this is amazing that we meet here again at the hospital. And I said, well, let me pay it forward. And so we prayed together and we sang.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first.
This is going to absolutely blow your mind, but my best friend, who I call my brother, was just diagnosed with cancer. So I think that him and his family got a little bit curious about their DNA and stuff like that. So they took an ancestry test. He told me about his results and shit like that. I thought it was really cool that he was able to break down what he was. So I'm like, I'm about to take that test too. So I ordered a test. The test comes to me. I take the test with me to work. I do the test in my office next to my SRO officer. We share office or whatever. She's actually a cop. So she's asking me, like, what are you doing? Because I have to spit in this little thing and close it. It was all weird. So I'm like, I'm taking an ancestry test or whatever. And she was like, yo, I need to take that test because I never met my father before. I don't even know who he is. And I was like, girl, you got to take this test, whatever. So the next day, she orders the test. A couple weeks later, we don't hear nothing about it, but a couple weeks later, I get a call from my best friend's mom. And she's like, she's literally whispering. We on the phone. I'm like, hey, Ma, what's going on? And she's like, do you know a woman named such and such? And I was just like, yeah, I work with her. And she was like, she's a cop, right? And I was just like, yeah, why? She said, well, she just came up on Ancestry as my sister. And I'm like, as your sister? What do you mean? And she was like, she came up as my father's daughter. And I'm like, how is that possible? And she, you know, pretty much was saying anything was possible with her dad. But yeah, that's my sister. So I'm just like, Ma, I need you to understand, like, I took the test because Pook told me about the test. She took the test because she seen me taking the test. But you telling me that she's Pook's aunt and your sister? And she was like, Emily, yes. So yes, that was absolutely insane. But what made it even crazier was years prior to that, this lady has a son. Years prior to that, we was hanging out with this group of people, and they had this cousin, a younger cousin. He used to hang out with us, whatever. And we used to call him Little Pook because he looked just like my best friend, like literally just like him. So we used to laugh about it and call him Little Pook. Well, he really was Little Pook. He was literally Pookie's first fucking cousin. We just didn't know it. We hung around this kid for maybe a whole summer and had no idea that they actually really was related until a couple years later after taking Ancestry.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
How people in toxic relationships have dramatic improvements or miraculous cures from mental and physical illnesses about a year after divorce. Weird.
Mistress is right there now. Okay, so some of the coincidences that some people stated were just like shocking. Like that one that he said his uncle was having a mistress and then lightning struck at the place where they were. That was like shocking. The woman who was talking about the mother saying for years that she did not like a particular person when she used to go and pick up the truck, and she said it for years that she feels like the person is someone that unalives people. And then when she was almost retiring, when she was at the end of her career, it was discovered that that person that she had a bad feeling about was actually a serial killer. That's just weird, and that's a coincidence that is really like mind-blowing. Personally, I don't think I have any coincidence that I can say is mind-blowing like that. Maybe if I think about it and I remember, I will write it in the comment section. But personally, now I don't think about anything that is such a coincidence. The only thing that I've always thought about that I did not understand was when I was in university and I was sick and I had exams the next day and I had to memorize, aka cram, the structure of some proteins. And I was, at that time, I really did not used to wake up in the night. I used to sleep very early. Coupled with the fact that I was sick at that point in time, I did not think I was going to be able to memorize, aka cram, the structure before exam the next day. but I was sleeping and then something happened. Okay, they restored power, and I usually sleep with the light off. I never sleep with light on because I don't know how to sleep with light on. So, but that time, because I was sick, I just slept off and I forgot to put off the light. So they restored power, the light came on, and as it came on, I was still trying to sleep. I think I was still sleeping. Then I heard voice and I woke up immediately, and I was saying my book like I have to memorize these structures because there was no way it was not going to come out. Some of it was going to come out. It was definitely going to come out in the exam, and I had not even memorized it. So I just picked up my book, and if you knew me in university, my undergrad, I cannot wake up in the night and my eyes will be open like this. I would not be able to do it. I will be sleeping. I will sleep off. But for that 1 hour or so that I was memorizing the structure, my eyes were open. Like there was no ounce of sleep in my eye. Immediately I finished memorizing the last one, I just felt sleepy and I slept off. Lo and behold, there was question saying that we needed to write some structures of the protein, and fortunately for me, that I was able to remember what I memorized, aka crammed that night, that morning, because it was morning, it was early in the morning that that happened. And I still think about it because it's something that did not used to happen to me. I never used to wake up in the night to read throughout my pharmacy school, wake up in the midnight to read what? And that was the first and I think the only time that ever happened. I don't know how I woke up. I don't know the voice that just woke me up because it was loud, like it was just my name, and I woke up immediately and there was nobody in the room with me, nothing. So I think about that. It's not a coincidence, but it's just a weird thing that happened to me that I still cannot explain. Anyway, that is my own story. I don't know what you guys thought about some of the coincidences that people shared. Do you have any coincidence that you think about and would love to share? Please share it in the comment section so that we can get this discussion popping. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are not yet subscribed and you like videos such as this, please consider subscribing by clicking on the red button that says subscribe, and don't forget to click on the bell notification icon by the side so that you're notified anytime I upload videos. Now, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.